Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Kilts and Culture, special social distancing episode. I am Rocky.
I'm Mac.
And that's Mac. My arm probably disappears when I do that. For the record, we are 10 feet apart. I made sure we are currently in the studio. 10 feet is right here. So we are 10 feet apart. So we are obeying restrictions. Basically, Mac is our production manager. He's our head kilt maker. He's also usually on the other end of the camera, or on the other side, over there.
Something like that,
So,
yeah.
Over there, on the other side of the room. He's not, because Eric is at home, so Mac is now my co-host for today. Lucas, who's our store manager, is actually the one curating the questions. So that's how we have this set up for today. Eric is going to be, I think he's going to be logged into Facebook. He's going to be poking around as well, trying to help people out in the comments section. And Mac and I are here to answer your questions. Today, we kind of have a try. Not really, but sort of.
A retry.
Yeah, a retry. Basically, with everything that's going on, we all need a drink. So today, we're not going to do give you feedback on it. We just need a drink. So, that being said, I have my bottle of Oban, which I'm going to be pouring a little glass of Oban. Mr. Mac, what do you got over there?
Well, I've got the Chattanooga whiskey.
The Chattanooga Choo Choo.
Since I couldn't be in Tennessee for the Bristol race this weekend because of everything, I figured at least got to get some Tennessee.
Fair enough. And Lucas, what do you have back there behind door number 3?
Back here behind door number 3, I have Jameson's Caskmates, actually.
Okay.
Very
okay.
tasty. Had it before. Happy to have it again. But the bottle's looking kind of empty. I'm curious to what happened to all the whiskey in there originally.
What did we do? What did we use that for? I forget.
I think we did 2. Did we do 2 tastings with it?
Yeah, we might have. We might have had it for... We didn't do it like tastings with it. I know we did one tasting with it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe that was one of my own from my basement. Maybe that was why we had that there.
From the whiskey vault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, regardless. Slajava. Yes. Like you, for us here, it has been ungodly stressful. There's a lot of stuff going on, obviously, with COVID-19, social distancing, basically moving the goalposts on what we were allowed to do and not allowed to do as a business. We tried to, adhere to all those kind of things. So we just wanted to have an episode where we kind of just, the try, if you will, is going to be us just kind of giving you the lay of the land where we're at. The first thing I want to say is I want to give a shout out and a thank you to all the first responders,
Yes.
the doctors, the nurses, everybody who's on the front lines right now doing what they can, putting their lives on the line to help us. I don't want this whole episode to be about all this stuff, but I wanted to take a moment out to just thank them for what they're doing. It is selfless. It's their job, but it's selfless, and it is dangerous, especially right now. So that being said, we are, I'm going to go one way, then come back. Basically, we're kilt makers. What can we do? I could not just, basically tell everybody, okay, go home, take, 8 weeks off, 12 weeks off, whatever it ends up being, and just close down the company and do nothing. That's not in my nature. I had to figure out some way to at least contribute and to keep things moving as much as we can and to help in some way. So right now, we've kind of switched our production over, and we're actually making surgical masks. So this is what we're doing for the doctors, nurses, police, fire, EMS, anybody that needs masks. We're doing a few things. We are still paying the people who are sewing the masks. We need to keep the economy moving, and we want to keep people, income coming in for some people. So we are selling these masks at cost to first responders and that kind of thing. We are not selling them to the general public yet. we're trying to prioritize the people who need the most right now, the people who are most at risk. So eventually we may, but for right now, we're just trying to get as many done as possible. We have no idea what our run rate's going to be, basically how fast we can make them, get them in, get them out. We have an army of people who have volunteered, paid volunteers, but volunteers sewing from their houses. We have about 35 people sewing for us from their homes. We have a sewing machine supply store in King of Prussia who actually does classes called Steve's Sewing and Vacuum Center. Steve's an awesome guy. He has a bunch of his employees and people who have taken classes from him. They've stepped up. They're trying to help us sew these masks as fast as possible. We have a couple cut and sew places up in Allentown that we're friendly with. They set us up with a supply chain. They set us up with elastic. They set us up with basically people to help us sew these. We are trying our best to make as many as possible as quickly as possible. The scary part is the orders coming in are outpacing our ability to put out, but we're trying and just doing as much as we can. On the USA Kilts front, the company currently is at about 10% production capacity, meaning we have a kilt maker or two sewing from home, but everyone who can make masks for us is making masks. The fabric mills in Scotland and most of our suppliers in Scotland basically have closed down for their shutdowns that they are having over there due to this. But that doesn't mean we're not shipping. We still have a warehouse full of stuff. So if you need belts, buckles, kilt pins, whatever, we have those kind of things in stock. We are still shipping through this. So if you need anything, this is not a sales pitch, but if you need anything, we are still moving as fast as we can. We're just going to ask that everyone be a bit patient with us, especially on the kilt making front. Everything is an unknown. This is all uncharted territory for us as it is for you. So luckily, everyone's been extremely patient and very, very kind to us in this way, and we really do, tip our hats. We do appreciate that very much. Now, I'm done. I'm done talking about it. You guys are stressed out about the whole COVID thing. We're stressed out. Good God, we are stressed out about this stuff, especially trying to help in as much as we can. So ultimately, we made the decision. We did want to do a show today. It has nothing to do with COVID, but it's a distraction. It's a distraction for you guys, and frankly, it's a distraction for us. We need it as much as you guys do. So please sit back, pour yourself a nice tall pint of scotch, and enjoy the show. Load in your questions. Lucas is going to be curating them over there. Mac has a bunch of preloaded questions that we got before and old ones we haven't gotten to yet. So, that being said, Mr. Mac, take it away.
Should we start off with probably the one question that Lucas is going to get a lot of on there is what tartans are we wearing?
What tartans?
What tartans are we wearing?
This is I am wearing the, what are we calling this? Scruffy, basically the bagpiper, the old bagpiper for Dropkick Murphys, Scruffy Wallace. Is a buddy of mine. He's now in law enforcement up in Massachusetts, and he wanted a tartan designed to match his law enforcement uniform for when he did police weddings, funerals, that kind of stuff. So I designed this one specifically for him. The Scruffy law enforcement tartan.
That's kind of
what
how
we'll
it's
call
called.
it. Sure, that's what I'm going to call it now. So that's what I'm wearing today, because that's what I had here. Mr. Mac.
I've got on the Longford County Crest tartan, which I think is no longer in existence.
Discontinued. Yes.
Done.
Yes.
That's it.
Exclusive.
I think Adam, our very own Adam, has the other last piece, so it's done.
I've heard that he's willing to fight people for it. So please show up at his house, and he will fight you for it. He's not that strong. No.
Lucas, what do you got on back there?
What do you have, Lucas?
Well,
Nobody can seal it, but
not encouragements to fight Mac. I have a quick question here.
now what tartan do you have on?
Oh, what tartan? I'm sorry. I have Roxburgh Ancient on, or Roxburgh District.
Muted.
Muted.
Yeah, the
That's
muted.
it.
Yeah.
Muted. Yeah.
That's beautiful tartan.
This
I
one,
love that one.
hasn't come out in a while. Yeah, I love it and enjoy it quite a bit. Might have to get an 8-yard eventually.
And the other thing with what Lucas got on, he's got a box pleat. So his is even more specialer.
He's super special.
Yeah,
He's a special snowflake, that Lucas.
let's hear it for box pleats in the comment section.
No. No. All right, Mr. Mac.
So we'll start with,
let's start him off.
With our good friend Kirk Kinnaman.
That guy again?
Yeah, he seems to pop up every time.
Jeez.
I bet he's watching too. He's one of those. So he's asking, in your experience, which is the hardest tartan to work with?
To sew? Or yeah.
He says to work with. So I'm guessing
I'm assuming for a kilt.
Yeah,
All right,
I would go that way.
Hardest tartan to work with. I would, material-wise, I would say something that is not wool or not PV, which is why we don't do anything that's not wool or not PV. Made that real easy. But like if we sew, like I've tried sewing things on the bias, and that's a big pain in the butt. With knits, like weird fabrics way back when. And yeah, so anything non-wool would be very, very difficult. Tartan-wise, though, I'm going to say stock tartan. Let's make these parameters. Stock tartan. You can just call up a mill, order it, boom, done. I think I'm going to steal your answer.
Probably.
Aberdeen.
Dang it.
Yes. Basically, Aberdeen District Tartan has a set size that is half the circumference of the earth. It is, what is it, like 14 or 15 inch?
It's like 14 and a half, I think is the last one we got in.
Loch Heron does it in 16 ounce, and it's like a ridiculous set size. So there's no good way to pleat it to the stripe because it would be the pleats would be 4 inches wide each, and you'd have 4 of them. And it's to the set. It's kind of you're making up your own set within it, and it's one of those that doesn't really work well. It's a nice looking tartan if you like pinkish kind of color, but
Pink and copper.
Yeah, but yeah, Aberdeen's probably my go-to. Hate it.
Yeah, it doesn't even repeat vertically. You get basically.
Oh yeah, like a
set and
a full set on the front apron.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, that one's huge.
There's a lot of wastage. Then in a kilt, if you have to splice, if you're ordering 4 yards double width and you have to splice it, you may, if depending on where the mill cuts it when they send it to us, you may be wasting 8 inches, 10 inches of fabric to get to a spot where you can splice it. Luckily, Loch Heron's doing single width cloth now as well. But
thank you
for that one.
Yeah,
screws up our fly blades, but
yeah,
it is what it is. Any other ones you can think of off the top of the head?
I would say the hardest tartan to work with would be more. I'm gonna go shadow tartans. Some of those are quite difficult because you almost have to take the material and kind of lean different angles to see some of those, the way the twill line or the way the tartan lines are on there because the material's woven. Some of the threads are twisted one way and then the other threads twist the other way, which creates that pattern. But some of the mills use the thread colors are so close together.
Yeah.
That you can't see that line until you're a weird angle.
Yeah, I was going to say, you almost have to have like the light on the other side of the machine angling back at the fabric to bounce at your face.
Yeah,
so you can see a little bit of the pattern.
It's a hope and pray a lot of times.
Spray and play. But in fairness, if you're that close to it and can't see, the customer or people 10 feet away from the customer won't be able to tell if it's 2 threads off here, 3 threads off there. It's gonna be as close as we can get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're real difficult. They definitely test the eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So, Aberdeen and the bastard that made the shadow tartans.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that for all the kilt makers. Cool. Mr. Lucas, next question.
All right. First up, we've got Wayne, and Wayne is saying he would like to buy a kilt, but he thinks folks are going to make fun of him. How often and when should you wear a kilt in public?
The confidence to wear a kilt comes from within, period. It is a mental curb this high that you have to get over. No one else has anything to say about your life but you. You are the one, you are the hero of your own story. It's your desires, your wants that matter to you. So if a random busload of kids screaming past you at 70 miles an hour, screams, obscenities out the windows. Hey, nice skirt, buddy. Who cares? They have zero, that was 3, 0 impact on your life. Now, if your wife, if your husband, if your parents, whatever, depending on your age, are going to be a little weirded out or are going to say things to you, that's a little bit of a different story because you're going to have to find a way to navigate that within your own family. But ultimately, it's your happiness that matters in your own life, period. So if mom thinks you're weird for wearing a kilt, just explain to her, Mom, this means something to me. I'm going to do it, period. And this is what I'm going to do now. Once I go out in public, I'm going to be in a kilt. And over time, she will, or he, or whoever, will kind of come to accept it after you've done it multiple times. If they really freak out about it, then maybe not wear it around them. But as far as the general public's concerned, who cares? Just do it. It really only is a thing in your head. And if Johnny Pants 85 wants to make a negative comment on your Facebook post because he saw you wearing a skirt, so what? Johnny Pants 85 has security issues. Johnny Pants 85 has his own issues that he's got to deal with. Don't make his problems your problem. You do you.
Yeah, I mean, you starting off just I'm going to back up a step. Like Rocky's saying, you're going to see that person for maybe 10 seconds and they're gone. Especially if it's a busload of kids going down the road. If it's something you want to do and you really feel and you're passionate about wearing, you want to wear something. Start off, you got to build up your confidence as yourself and just start off. Go to the grocery store, go and come back, or and then next time go to the grocery store and then in this place, and build yourself up too, by going even distances.
Yeah, or not even grocery store where you're going to be the only guy in a kilt. Eric's advice, which is sound advice, is once they're reopened again, go to a Celtic festival, go to an Irish pub, go to somewhere where it's going to be a little bit more accepted if you're concerned about it. And then you'll feel like you're fitting in a little bit more, and you're going to get more positive comments than negative ones. So that'll help build up your self-esteem. It'll help get you more comfortable. And then you start saying, all right, well, I'm wearing my kilt today, so I'm going to go to the grocery store. Consequences be damned. And you just kind of move on from there.
I mean, all of fashion starts off in a spot like that. So no matter what you wear, somewhere along the line, someone made fun of somebody for wearing a T-shirt. So and now it's normal. So it's just the trend that's going to happen. You're going to get some of that, but you're also going to get the other end of the spectrum too. You're going to have people coming up and talk to you that wouldn't have talked to you before, or they're going to tell you all about their family history and about this related to this clan or this clan. So you're going to get to interact with people that you've never interacted with, and then you might learn something from that person, and who knows, friendships build out of that type of stuff too. So
yep, absolutely. Cool. Mr. Mack, let's do another one.
All right, so we have Cameron White bringing this question to us. So what is the controversy over I'm going to mess this name up in a hurry. And you just said
Vestiarium Scoticum?
The Sobieski
Stuarts?
That one. That's it.
Yeah.
Those people.
Yep.
And their writings and how it affected tartan making. And is this why we now have a Scottish Registry of Tartans? And what organizations handled the registry before the
tartan registry?
Yeah, before it is
now. The Sobieski Stuarts. I'm happy, Cameron, you asked this question. I was actually thinking about at some point doing a longer kind of single answer thing about this particular one. The Sobieski Stuarts were two brothers who their claim to fame was they said that they're Polish Scots and that they were related through Bonnie Prince Charlie's Polish side to Bonnie Prince Charlie. And basically they came up with, they're effectively con men. They came up with a book called the Vestiarium Scoticum. I probably butchered that name. Don't care. If I said it right, it's on me. If I said it wrong, it's on Eric. He's the one who told me how to say it. It was written, I think, in 1842, and it was basically a collection of different clan tartans. Disclaimer, they made the majority up, if not all of them. So it's kind of where the whole clan thing started, and they just kind of were two con men who wanted to move material and sell material, and they made up this whole thing and just presented it. I believe within their lifetime, it was kind of sussed out that this is complete bunk. But at the same time, clan chiefs kind of got on board to a degree and were like, yeah, that's a cool tartan. So I don't care whether McPherson or Barclay or whatever in the book is just made up. I like it. So that's the clan tartan now. So it was kind of, it's a weird origin story for a lot of clan tartans, where these two guys who were just literally profiteering off the stuff, just, con men who just made things up out of thin air, basically put it forth, and it was kind of accepted. And even after it was found out to be a con, they just kind of said, well, we know it's a con, but we still like it. So they kept going with it. And a lot of those tartans are actually the official tartans now. Like, clan chiefs have recognized them. So that's where it kind of started. I'm not sure the exact timeline, but there was kind of an unspoken thing where it was like the McDonald tartan was McDonald, and it moved forward as specific patterns, but no one was really recording it. I want to say the 1970s. Don't quote me on it. 70s, 80s kind of thing. There was a group called the STS, the Scottish Tartan Society. They started cataloging all of the tartans that existed, whether that is the ones from the Sobieski Stuarts, ones that were designed after that, didn't matter. They started cataloging all of the official tartans that existed worldwide. The STS eventually kind of fell apart and split into effectively two factions. The Scottish Tartan World Registry, which was run by a guy named Keith Lumsden, and another arm of it became the Scottish Tartans Authority, and Brian Wilton was the head of that. The Scottish Tartans Authority was the more well-known one. Basically, what it boiled down to was the mills in Scotland and the tartan companies in Scotland got behind the STA and kind of became a loose amalgamation, a conglomerate thing, and kind of went forward from there with the STA. The Scottish Tartan World Register registered some individual tartans. The STA was registering their own tartans. Some people were registering both. They both had the records predating their own existence. And somewhere along 2005 or 2006, 7, somewhere in there, basically, they both, they were, it was the Scottish Tartan Society, then it was Scottish Tartan World Register over here, and the STA over here, and they both traveled their own path. And then at some point, they both started, petitioning the Scottish government, hey, we need an actual government body to record these things. We need one unifying thing. So they both kind of put all the data together, and you got the Scottish Tartan Registry, which is an official branch of the Scottish government. They are the ones currently recording tartans for posterity. And that's where it stands currently, is basically if you want to record a tartan, you go to the Scottish Tartan Register.gov.uk, I think, and that's where you record official tartans now.
So is this why there's so many 1842 variants?
Yes.
Touching on a point you made earlier.
Yes, it's there was the Sobieski Stuarts put out their book in 1842. A lot of those were weird variations, or they're not the current one, but it was an old one. There's also other things like Wilson's Bannockburn and other mills that had done things during that same kind of time period. And it was like Wilson's Bannockburn was the main mill, a huge mill that was producing actual tartans. So there's some Wilson's Bannockburn variants. There's all kinds of different variants, but it's based on Sobieski's and the history of it. And some clans may have an older variation of a tartan or a newer version of a tartan. Like Buchanan. Buchanan has a Buchanan Old, and that is, I believe this is true. Again, don't quote me on it. The Buchanan tartan is an asymmetrical tartan. It doesn't repeat. But that wasn't always necessarily the case. The Buchanan tartan actually had a repeating version where it was, the red section and the green section were the pivots and the yellow section was between them. What the story that I believe is true, again, don't quote me, was that a weaver screwed up and did an asymmetrical version where it was ABC, 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 where it was green, yellow, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, where it didn't actually flip and mirror image itself. And that just kind of became the Buchanan tartan versus the one that is now referred to as Buchanan Old, which is the one that's actually symmetrical.
Mills would never.
No. They would
never come out Flower of Scotland.
No, they would never screw something up royally and then just give it a different name and pass it off and say, this is the new thing now. Never happened. That's all I have to say about that. No specific mule I'm thinking of. I won't name names. You cannot make me. Mr. Lucas, next question.
All right, next one up. We have a question from Brad Russell, who's a kilt newbie. And he says, I understand why the waist measurement is vital for the fit, but I was wondering why the hip measurement was needed since the kilt hangs straight down.
Brad, you may have what we in the biz refer to as Noastal disease. You have Noastal. Most kilts are custom made. And guys are built differently than women, but there's still some variation in guys. Some guys have a flat butt, hence Noastal. And they're more of a cylinder than they are an actual, curvy person. Now, there's other guys who are swimmers, runners, hockey players, whatever, who have muscular rear ends. And their kilt would actually need a 7 to 8 inch difference between the waist and the hips. So not every guy has a reasonable posterior, but some guys do. So there needs to be an allowance for the hip measurement different from the waist measurement.
Yeah, I think what comes to my mind is the one of our customers that visits up at Cata Classic. He's got the smallest waist I think I've ever seen on an actual man, and his hips are they're huge. He's like a 10-inch difference, and it's
fun to sew.
Yeah, it's a blast. But you need that to get that shape, to get that form, to get it to hang right. We need those measurements are important. Now it's a matter of what happens for someone who doesn't want a hip strap. Then how important is that hip measurement then?
More, or as if not more. The hip measurement, you need the allowance for a couple reasons. Number one, for the proper form. The kilt should be snug around the belly, and then if you're looking at profile view, it goes flat down the small of the back, and then comes out a little bit around the widest part of the rear end, and then should hang from the widest part straight down. If you don't have the right hip measurement, what will happen is it's going to want to be a tube, and you're going to put undue stress on the bottom of the fell, the sewn down portion of the pleats, where we stop sewing at the widest part of your rear end. You're going to put an undue amount of stress right there. And when you sit down, eventually you're going to pop a seam. And then you're going to have like two pleats that kind of split and go straight up to the small of your back, or multiple pleats that do that. So it is a very important measurement still.
Yeah, I'm going to jump down to another question we have here, which kind of goes in hand to hand with this. Is Mike is asking, what causes the left side of the kilt's apron and the first pleat to sometimes kick out? If we don't have that shaping right, you're gonna see that's gonna flare out weird, and then it causes other issues along the way. But that's one of the reasons why that type of thing may happen. And again, this is why that hip measurement is important.
Agreed. You need the front apron and a kilt. Hey Mac, what was that question again?
is
We're going to roll right into it.
What causes the left side of the kilt apron and the first pleat to sometimes stick out?
Great question. Who asked that?
Mike.
Mike. Great question. Glad you asked, buddy. We got you. The front apron of a kilt isn't just straight up and down. It's actually curved and angled. It's shaped to the wearer's body. So the front apron of the kilt, in the top 2 inches, the sewn down portion by the fringe, as well as where it's actually attached to the first pleat. The top 2 inches are what's known as the rise. They will be effectively straight up and down. Then from the 2-inch mark, and that will align with the center of the top strap and buckle. From that point down about 5 inches, it's going to go on an angle. And that angle allows for some of the ease for the widest part of the rear end. It helps shape the pleats, or shape the front apron and the kilt around your body and allow for your rear end while you're standing or sitting. And then the bottom inch or so after the angle is going to go effectively straight down, or a much less angle, less severe angle. And that's to start to bring it down so that it hangs out to the widest part of you and then kind of falls straight down from the widest part of your rear end straight down. Now, the front apron, why does that pleat kick forward a little bit sometimes? It's because basically you're trying to get the fabric to do something it doesn't want to do. The fabric wants to be on a straight angle or hanging straight up and down, vertically or at a diagonal. It doesn't want to go straight and curve and a little bit less of a curve and then continue straight down. So the reason why that kind of kicks forward is the fabric is fighting what we want it to do. We're trying to force it to do something it doesn't want. We have to shape the fabric. So if it happens to kick forward a little bit, the easiest thing to do is just basically pinch it down at the bottom so that it's not kicking forward, and then re-iron in the front apron to that new pinched spot, and that will help mold it around the wider part of your body, around the waist and hips in the front.
Yeah, and then that sometimes gives us the problem where you guys will see it, and we'll get some emails about it, where on the apron, your apron's hanging flat here, but then you'll see this corner that'll poke out. We'll have to tack that corner up. We'll have to fold that up, and then we stitch that up to help keep that from visibly showing and visibly dropping below the front apron. So that's the only stitching you will ever see. The bottom of the kilt is to bring that up, unless we need to hem something. Then you'll see a different kind of stitch. But you'll just see a little line of stitching that'll go right there. Yeah, like a half moon type shape.
Yeah,
but that's it.
Yeah, if you actually open up the front apron or the front pleat of your kilt, and you look down at the bottom edge, from the front apron to the edge of the first pleat, in the depth of that pleat, you're going to see a little line of stitching. And some people will actually see that and call us and say, there's a weird hem in this one area. I'm not sure why. There's a mistake. What's going on? Was that done by accident? And ultimately, no, it's done on purpose. What Mac is talking about is correct. Because we're angling the front apron weird, it wants to dip down at the bottom. So you just kind of fold that back up on itself and tack that up so that it doesn't dip down below the bottom of the front apron, and you have a nice clean finished edge at the bottom of the apron.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Mm-hmm. Hope that helps. Mr. Lucas, next question.
All right. Next question from Mickey. And Mickey is asking, is there anything preventing some tartans to be made in Poly Viscose? For instance, Thompson's have some wonderful wool tartans, but limited PV tartans. Is it a trademark, or is it another issue?
The viability of X number of tartans in the market. There's only one mill that we use that makes Poly Viscose fabric. There's only one mill in the UK, I should say, that weaves polyester, rayon, polyester, viscose, tartan fabric. And they weave about 75-ish, 80 tartans or so in the PV cloth. We actually have specific ones that we tell them to weave just for us. Firefighter, law enforcement, American Heritage, the military tartans, and we buy, hundreds of yards at a time. But those, basically, they're only producing and stocking what they think they can sell. So if, they already do, 3 technically,
They do 3.
Thompsons.
I wish they did the other one.
In the Poly Viscose fabric. So they're not going to weave every single variant of every single tartan. It's just commercially not viable. They would have way too much inventory. So basically they just kind of decide, all right, these are the ones that are going to be most popular. These are the ones that we've been asked for. These are the ones that, schools have requested this tartan. So those are the ones that they stock, and that's it. We expand on that a little bit, as I said, with our range, but it's not ones that, it's not every single tartan, unfortunately. I wish we could offer hundreds of different tartans in Poly Viscose, but the mill only offers about 75, and we do not have infinite funds. As much as I would like to, we don't have infinite funds, so we only are able to purchase, X amount of the different tartans, and the mill's only only able to stock support a certain amount of them.
Now, if him and his group of friends got together and wanted to get something custom woven,
True.
Could that be done?
Yes. The minimums for a custom weave of PV are much higher. Well, I shouldn't say the minimums. A reasonable price on the minimums for PV are much higher, like 130 meters, 200 meters, that kind of price range, or that kind of length of cloth. That's enough for a lot of kilts. So, if you want something custom, sure, we could sort it for you. But unfortunately, in the regular price point, there's a reasonable number of tartans, but not an infinite number of tartans.
Yeah, we've had like the Clan Irwin Society. They went together and they got PV woven, and then we've had a few other associations come together and some pipe bands get PV cloth woven up, and so that that opens up a little bit more there. But yeah,
cool. Hope it helps, Mr. Mack.
All right, we got Christopher Hills asking, can you tell us the difference between War I-era kilts and modern kilts?
Can I?
I don't know. Would you like to take a stab at it?
World War I kilts?
World War I, yes.
Well, the straps, definitely different. The Mac is the historian. Mac is the reenactor, not me. I know enough to be dangerous, but not that much. So I'm going to make my bullet point list and let you say whether I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
So differences between current contemporary kilts and World War I.
Mm-hmm.
The straps.
Well, I'm going to guess he's meaning military kilts. So
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Well, it's World War I, so yeah, military. Okay, so I'm going to say the straps, the color of the straps, the number of holes in the straps, the style of buckle, the placement of the straps, meaning 4-inch rise versus not 4 versus 2-inch rise, the banding, the waistband at the top of the kilt, potentially the type of pleating, the tartans that are available. Obviously, military tartans are a lot less, and the type of the weight of the cloth, and or the color of the straps. I don't know if I said that. Black versus like tan, or like brown leather, and or the fabric ties that could be on some, pleating to the sett versus pleating to the stripe, and style. I think I said style, like rolled or military box pleat versus standard knife pleat.
Yeah, I mean, for the
how'd I do?
You did pretty good.
Sweet. Yes.
There's the difference between the two. Yes and no. Some stuff is done similarly than what we do now. Some stuff hasn't changed at all the way we do stuff. I've seen the gamut of 1 strap, 2 straps, 3 straps, no straps, using webbing for straps. We've looked at there was a
Twill tape or webbing, they didn't have nylon webbing.
It would have been webbing. It was they used a lot of times you see field made ones where they took their equipment straps and would cut them off old pieces of equipment and reuse those straps as on the kilt. Then we have seen a manufacturer out of Philadelphia that was supplying kilts to the
Canadians?
What's that?
Was it the Canadians they were supplying?
I believe it was the Canadians. It makes more sense that way than to the British government. But they were issuing to the CF, and they have their own weird version of a strap, which is just cloth. They took a piece of the scrap of the tartan and made their own strap out of it. And then you see usually a 2-prong type buckle on them versus a single prong, which is most people use now. Pleating, as far as I've talked to the curator at the Black Watch Museum in Perth, and they had 4 kilts from one unit, specifically one unit. They were all made differently. So you had one that was knife pleated, one that was rolled pleated, one that was box pleated. So you get that variant in that. Then you get 3 of them that were pleated to the stripe. One was pleated to the sett. So you have variances all in that for just one unit. But the basic construction of a kilt is the same then as it is now. It's just the little details are different.
Yeah. The thing that I find most amusing, the biggest fallacy, I guess, that would be put forward that I find most amusing is that, like, this is how it was done. This is the military style kilt. There's only one way to do it, and that's completely wrong. There are literally like dozens, like currently there are dozens of different kilt companies making kilts for the Scottish military, and I know several of them, and they're all doing them differently. They all have their own ways to do it. Ultimately, what you get is what looks like a kilt from outward appearance, and they're all going to be very, very similar, and to the untrained eye, it's going to look effectively the same. But there's a lot of internal steps. There's a lot of little tiny things that are different from one manufacturer to the next. Just like, Ford makes a different car than Chevy, but they both go down the highway. So there's a lot of little tiny differences that really are magnified when you start, really paying attention to it. And the general public, there's this weird just assumption that it's all the exact same.
Yeah, it's something that I struggle, at least in the reenacting community, where it's fantasized, like it has to be this is how it was done. No, it's not. It's once you get into, especially into 14, 15, you're really starting. They're subcontracting out, so you're getting this kilt maker, this kilt maker, this kilt maker, this kilt maker, and you're getting all the mills weaving different stuff. They just want it to look the same. They don't care how the end product is. It just has to look the same.
Yep.
And that's the end result.
Yep. So, exactly.
Hope that helps.
Sure it does. Mr. Lucas.
All right. Another question here from Toby. And
Another scotch here for Rocky.
All right.
It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and it's drink o'clock here. Stress relief.
Drink o'clock here.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Toby is asking, can you explain the holes on the end of a kilt edge? Was this where the kilt was pulled? Does it go away as a PV kilt is worn?
What's his name again? I'm sorry.
Toby, I think.
Toby?
That was Toby. Yep.
Toby. Cheers, Toby. We have a cat here in the shop, and he grabs each piece of cloth individually. No.
Lucas is having Benadryl. I need my Benadryl attack. Benadryl.
Double dose.
The little tiny zigzag perforation holes in the bottom of a Poly Viscose kilt or in the bottom of a wool kilt are actually artifacts from the weaving process. The mill weaves the cloth, and then once it's all done and it's been woven, they send it off to the finishers. Now, at the finishers, they actually take the cloth and they put it on what are called tenterhooks. Those are little tiny, basically think of them as little, curved nails. And they come in a zigzag pattern, and it grabs the edge of the cloth, and it holds it, and it stretches it. The mill, or the finisher, treats the cloth, washes the cloth, sets the dyes, does all kinds of different stuff to the cloth at the finishers, but it ends up with these little tiny zigzag holes from where the tenterhooks were pulling the cloth to stretch it. Even so far as if, let's say, the mill weaves 200 yards of black watch, and it came out at 53 inches after it's been washed and it shrank down a little bit, and the finisher says, "Oh shoot, it's supposed to be 54." they'll actually put it on tenterhooks and stretch the cloth to make it 54 inches finished product. So that is what those holes are from. They won't ever get bigger. They are going to, in the Poly Viscose fabric, because it's man-made, machine-washable fabric, those holes are going to stay there. They're going to close up a little bit over time, but they will still be there, 5 years from now. They're not going to get worse. They're not going to fray. They're not going to, it's not a damage to the kilt that's going to look any worse, but they're still going to remain there. Wool kilts will still have those. Now, it's not something that's, I lost my train of thought. Lost it. Done. But it's not going to affect the finished product of the kilt. Oh, I know what I was going to say. In other industries, tailoring, when you're making suits, when you're making shirts, when you're making pants, when you're making jackets, whatever, the fabric that you use, usually you actually cut pieces out of the fabric running lengthwise down the fabric. Mac does pattern work, so he knows. He'll back me up.
Yeah.
You're cutting pattern pieces down the length of the fabric, and they're not using the very edge. They just cut that off and effectively throw it out. They don't care because it's imperfect. In traditional kilts, you're using the bottom edge of the cloth. You're using that selvage edge. So it's going to still contain those little tiny zigzag tenterhook holes.
Yeah, I mean, in PV, you're going to notice a lot more of the yarn wool, and it's going to stay longer in PV versus the wool. Some of the wool, by the time we get it, we don't even notice it. There's very little in wool that we still see those little holes. When we were up actually in Allentown, talking to one of the cut and sew operations up there, they had their tables with stacks of fleece up there. The bottom edge of the fleece, you could see those marks in it.
Yep.
So it's, but as Rocky said, they're cutting out patterns. So they're cutting out, cakes worth of material, but they're cutting it out and they're wasting about that much on the edge. That is just getting tossed. So you never see that part. So yeah, it's you're gonna see them on PV. Now, what about?
You see them, but it's only if your eyeballs are
right
literally
there.
like right there, like 8 inches away from it, and or you're holding it up to a light and you're looking through it. If anyone's eyeballs are that close to the bottom of your kilt, either A, you got a big problem, or B, they're not paying attention to the bottom of the kilt. One of those two scenarios. So it's something that you're going to notice if you're inspecting the bottom of the kilt, but it's not something that you get, your hackles up over.
Now, what about that line that runs just right above there that you kind of can see everything?
Oh, if it's woven on a rapier loom. Yeah. Now, the zigzag hooks are going to be there, period.
Yes.
The little line Mac is referring to is there's different types of looms. There's lino selvage, there's a rapier loom, there's a daub cross loom. There's different types of looms that weave different ways. Traditionally speaking, way back when, the shuttle went across the entire width of the fabric when it's weaving. It went across the entire width, turned around, came back down, turned around, went back up, turned around, came back down, or across, didn't go up and down. Which was one continuous thread, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. High-speed current, industrial looms that are manufactured today have what's called a tuck-in selvage, or they're a rapier loom. So basically, instead of one continuous piece of cloth going back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, it injects one thread, chops it off about a centimeter past the edge of the end of the warp threads, and then it tucks it back in. So, and then it does the next thread, cuts it, tucks it back in. So what you end up with is a little tiny line about a centimeter up from the bottom of the edge of the cloth, which has a little bit of fuzziness to it, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Again, that's not get any worse or better over time. It's just, it is what it is, but it's done on a high-speed rapier loom, which is the majority of looms that are, produced nowadays. The daub cross looms were much slower. They produced a better quality of cloth in the finished edge, but they were much slower, and the mills were making a lot less money because it would take longer to weave a piece of cloth. Now, some of the mills over in Scotland, specifically House of Edgar and Loch Heron, have basically bastardized, they've morphed. What's the word I'm looking for? Not bastardized. They've adapted.
Yes.
They've improved the rapier loom, so it just weaves single width cloth, but instead of having the little tuck in at the very bottom edge, the thing injects the piece of cloth or in piece of yarn, and then it actually pulls it straight back through. So you're going to end up with one edge that is perfect and another edge that has little cut edges right on the very end. It looks like a fringed edge.
So the thread's actually like a U. It's just a bunch of series of U's that go up and down.
Yeah, good way to describe it. So now the advantage to that is you have a very, very nice traditional selvage edge to the cloth, and you have one edge which looks bad, but you end up cutting that off anyway, or that's what you used for the waistband. The negative part about doing that is the cloth is only single width. Single width meaning 30 inches-ish wide. Now, it's not a problem for kilts, and actually it's an advantage for kilt makers because we don't have to splice it. There's no wastage. The bad part is when you need the cloth to be double width, whether it's for piper's plaids, fly plaids, great kilt, cutting out patterns, that kind of thing, you end up with a splice right in the middle. Now, actually for great kilts, that's kind of traditional anyway, because way back when, material was woven 30 inches wide, 28 inches wide, so they ended up splicing the fabric together, and that's how you would get double width cloth for a great kilt. But nowadays, if you need double width cloth, it is not ideal, but it is what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to wrap that up. That's what it is. So, chew on that, buddy. I hope that answer helps. Mr. Mack, next one.
So we have Jason asking, he is going to a wedding as a guest. He's been given permission to go kilted, but was asked to come semi-formal. How would you interpret semi-formal kilt attire?
Semi-formal kilt attire. Today, in the U.S. especially, the levels of formal, semi-formal, casual, dressy casual, smart day, like all that, the lines are so blurred. It really depends on the individual sending out the thing. I remember Adam had a story where his brother kept saying, "Oh, just come to our wedding. It's just it's formal. It's black tie. It's fine." And Adam's like, "Do you mean like semi-formal?" He's like, "No, yeah. Like just wear like a nice suit. It's black tie. It's fine." No, what you're referring to is like semi-formal or business, business dress. It's not really formal. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just a regular.
I'll put that there.
Just put that right there. Thank you. It's just like wear a regular necktie. It's formal, and people don't necessarily get it. So verify with the host what they actually mean by semi-formal. Now, that being said, if they actually mean semi-formal, then what I would suggest is either a nice tweed and a semi-dress sporran, or an argyle jacket and vest with a straight necktie, not a bow tie, not a Prince Charlie, not a regulation doublet, but an argyle at best, or a tweed jacket and vest at worst. I don't want to say worst, but at least. That would be, in my estimation, semi-formal. Sporran-wise, semi-dress, maybe a hunting sporran with fur, like what Mac has on over there. Those would be good options for a semi-formal type event.
Yeah, I mean, even like a Wallace jacket, I think would be fine, because I think some people associate black with being formal. So even like a Wallace jacket or an argyle that's black could be, to some people, is fancy. That's formal. Where like
fancy.
Where a tweed may be, a little bit more
earthy.
Yeah. Those types of tones. The making sure your leathers match is one thing we talked about earlier today. But make sure if you're wearing a brown sporran, you got a brown belt, or a combination brown black belt type thing. But just and your shoes, the other thing, make sure your shoes are brown or black depending on what you're wearing. But it's
now. Would you wear a? This is maybe more of a question for Eric, but he's not here. God rest his soul. He's at home. He's working from home. He's not dead.
He may not even have pants on. We don't know.
That's true.
You guys got to pour one out for Eric.
For my homies. I'm not pouring out scotch. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. I don't know you anymore.
You may
Where
go
the heck
now.
was I going with this? Would you wear brown to a semi-formal event? Brown leathers.
The last wedding I went to, I did wear brown. I had a brown black belt on.
Okay.
I had my day brogues. I didn't have ghillie brogues.
Okay.
And I had my brown or one sporran on.
Okay.
So it was all. But also wore tweed jacket and vest.
Yeah.
So it was all whole package went together. I think that's more what we're kind of getting at is make sure the package.
It looks well put together.
It looks together.
Yeah.
Not have discombobulated.
Don't be discombobulation. Now, it's ultimately for the U.S. especially. Remember, when you're going to a wedding, I'm assuming there's not going to be too many guys in kilts there, if anyone else in a kilt. If you're the only guy in a kilt, it won't matter whether you're wearing brown leathers and a tweed or black leathers and an argyle. You're going to be the best dressed dude in the room just by the nature of wearing a kilt. You're going to get more attention. You're going to look good. And ultimately, a lot of this is just the attitude and owning the look. So if you look like you know what you're doing and you present yourself like you know what you're doing, people will just assume you know what you're doing because, frankly, they have no idea. They've probably never seen a kilt in person before, and you're that guy who's wearing the kilt, so you're going to get the next round at the bar.
I did have a guy at a wedding I went to. I was coming out of the bathroom as he was heading in, and he was cursing me out because I was the best dressed guest there just by wearing a kilt, and he was now afraid that I was going to pick up all the lady
All
folk
the
that-
women's. Yes.
And I was like, that's fine, you can have them. I'm good. My wife would be a little
My wife
upset.
is here. She may be mildly perturbed if I pick up multiple women at a wedding.
So, you just don't want to look better than the bride, but close.
Fair point. Now, you want to make sure that the bride and the groom are comfortable with what you're doing. And I think it sounds like that based on the question of, they've said to wear the kilt and be semi-formal. So you're going to be in good hands there. And just look like drive it like you stole it. Look like you know what you're doing, and you'll be fine. Cool. Mr. Lucas, next one.
Drive it like you stole it.
Drive it like you stole it.
Wow.
You never heard that before?
You've defined my morning commute. Well said.
My other phrase here. Hold on. My favorite phrase that made Lucas recoil in horror was, "We are building the airplane as we are going down the runway." The man's eyes bulged out of his head. Like, that is a horrible analogy.
I forbid you! I forbid you! Do you hear me? I forbid you!
You never want to do that. It's sometimes what you got to do.
Yeah, we've experienced that, and the joy of flight again and again and again.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the funny thing, touching on the us making masks thing, we started making masks or conceived of the idea a Saturday,
Two Saturdays ago.
2 Saturdays ago,
Yeah.
and
Feels like
had
2
the
months ago.
supply chain, had everything effectively up and running, kind of, and they're all getting up and running simultaneously. And I joked with Lucas. I said, "Look, you thought the other analogy was bad. We are no longer building the airplane as we're going down the runway. We are physically scooping up parts and bolting them onto the craft as we are driving down the runway, hurtling towards a cliff. This is going to be held together with duct tape and bubble gum, but by God, I'm going to make it work."
We're gonna need more bubble gum, so y'all
Get to chewing,
Yep,
son.
send it in. You guys ready for another question?
Sure.
Okay. Alrighty. This question comes from Ryan, and he's saying, just curious, what's your opinion on wearing a regular t-shirt over the belt of a kilt? Like, say you wear a plain belt, but the graphics of the shirt are blocked if it's tucked in.
That's a tough one. The my OCD-ness kind of like kicks in, and I have a little head tweak there. When we design T-shirts for USA Kilts, we specifically make sure the graphics are higher on the shirt so that they can be worn both with kilts or with jeans. If the graphics on the shirt get tucked in, I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. If they're tucked in and it's screwing up the look of the shirt, you can't tell what it is. Like, that's the punchline to the joke is on the bottom and it's tucked in. Frankly speaking, if you're going somewhere where you want to look reasonably put together, I'd say pick another shirt. If you're going to be somewhere where it's just super casual, like you're going to the beach, kind of casual, like flip-flops and a kilt, God help me, I just said that. But if it's super, super casual and you're wearing a t-shirt with a kilt and you want to untuck it and you're going to wear a pair of sneakers and it is the casualist of casualness, sure, untuck the shirt. My only thing I would say is the same thing I do with hockey jerseys. Tuck it in behind the sporran. So at least you're allowing the sporran to show and the front of the kilt to show. You don't want a shirt that's like too long and covering it up. Looks like you're wearing a nightshirt. But ultimately, I don't like the look of untucked shirts with a kilt. So ideally, pick a different shirt.
I think it depends on the length of the t-shirt. If it's a shorter cut t-shirt that really doesn't stay tucked in to begin with and just kind of hangs out about
you're
belt
wearing
level.
a kilt 2 inches above your belly button.
I know, but if I'm wearing a casual and it's down lower,
dude, that's a tube top. If that ain't getting, if that's not tucked in with a kilt,
you got to rock it. If you got it, you got to rock it.
Coraline, I want graphics of Mac in a tube top in a kilt. Insert here.
There's a new image for the wall.
I'm sorry to the viewers after this who have to suffer through that. No, I'm not. I love torturing people. Go ahead. You were saying.
But like some vintage shirts are a little bit shorter. So since the vintage shirts are the in thing, they're not as long.
What all the kids are wearing these days?
That's right. All those like
but
the
they're but they're still not 2 inches above the belly button.
No, they're not. But they're not also not as long as what some of the modern shirts are too.
Fair.
So it's a weird gray area.
Gray area, nebulous middle reasons.
It's like belt line.
Yes, it's the Narnia of.
So like Exton.
I hope you're watching, Ian.
Or Ron.
Yes.
I think if I'm going to like the pub or if I'm going to a show, and it comes out because you're in the mosh pit or you're just running around or whatever, then I don't think it's as bad. But yeah, typically I tuck my shirts in if I'm wearing a kilt, regardless of what it is, whether it's a button up or a t-shirt. Even polo, I'll tuck in, but it's. Yeah, I think tucked in is the way to go. It's the overall, the overall owning it type thing again.
Yeah.
You look more put together.
Side story.
Okay, I don't know where we're going.
I'm gonna censor myself on this story. That's how bad it is. I'll make it short and say, if you're wearing a kilt to a concert, to a show, don't go crowd surfing in the kilt, especially depending on what you are or are not wearing.
You don't want you do funny and hang out
under kilt. Yes, I'm censoring and stopping right there. My apologies to Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys. There's a much longer story there that it's PG-13 at least. So let's move on, shall we? Yes.
That's for an episode of Kilts and Culture Nightlife.
After dark. It's like Skinamax, but with kilts. I'm sorry, everyone. Mr. Lucas, next question.
Yeah, looks like we have a question actually from Lucas. Can we have Coraline not make that picture of Mac?
It's more of a comment.
Okay.
And King trumps Jack. So, Coraline, you're going to make that graphic.
Oh, dear.
Or glasses.
Okay.
Protective eyewear while doing that.
Let's see here. All right. We have a question here from David. And David is asking, why are some hunting sporrans egg-shaped and others have the same radius top and bottom line like the one that Mac is wearing right now?
Yep. Why are sporrans the way they are? It really boils down to manufacturer. There are certain, let's extend that. Look at dress sporrans. I can tell who made a dress sporran, which company made it, based on the shape of the sporran. Some are just straight ovals. Some are teardrop shaped. Some are a wide teardrop versus a kind of minimalist teardrop. Same thing goes with the hunting sporrans. Some have a narrower leather cantle area, and then they kind of bail out at the bottom into a teardrop. Others are more just straight oval. It just boils down to the manufacturer. There is no right or wrong way to do it. It's just, it is what it is. It just depends on the manufacturer, their preferred shape. Some manufacturers do, multiple shapes across their lines, depending on which customer's buying it. There's no one way to skin a cat. It's just, it is what it is. So aesthetically, some people like one, some people like another. So why not have both?
I mean, even historically, you see them all over the place. You see them all kinds of different patterns.
Yeah.
Like from even acorn shaped, where it's a little bit more, it kind of bellows out and curves in and kind of points towards the bottom.
Ugh.
And the top flat. Like that, my War 1 sporran is actually kind of shaped that way, where it kind of bellows out and comes in.
But a hunting sporran or a dress
No,
sporran?
that was a day sporran.
Okay, that's fine. I'm thinking like...
But
I'm
just saying.
Ugh.
I'm just saying in general, you
Yeah.
have all kinds of shapes. So it gets...
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's the manufacturer, wherever they've learned from, you kind of repeat some of the tendencies, and you change a little bit, but whoever, that company learned from now is doing it this way.
Or if you made your own up. If you said, you know what, everyone's doing it this way, I want to do it slightly different, just so I'm different from everybody else. This is my particular style, my particular shape. That's how things evolve. It's, you want to do something a little bit different than everyone else. The fur hunting sporran, what Mac is wearing now, or the bovine version of that, was something I designed. This is, or patting myself on the back here, something that I designed because I went to our sporran maker, and I said, Greg, I want something that is, I like the hunting sporran, I wear it a lot, but I want to dress it up a little bit, so give me fur on the lower part, and, the leather on the top part, and then leather leaves. So it's things evolve over time. Things just kind of, you come up with a new idea, a new concept, a new shape, whatever, and it either catches on or it doesn't. And he ended up adding it as part of his regular range just because he liked how it looked so much. Our broad flap day sporran, which is basically the military day sporrans that we have on the website, have the flap that goes over the front is almost the entire length of the body of the sporran to be able to have a bigger design on the front. And again, the sporran makers in Scotland kind of said like, that actually looks pretty cool. We're going to start doing a few of those as well with our own designs on them. So things evolve, things change, and there's not one way to do it. There's no one way to skin a cat. You can do it a bunch of different ways, and it's still, as long as it looks like a sporran, talks like a sporran, and quacks like a sporran, it's a sporran.
It doesn't moo like a sporran? Just cut it.
No. Well, it could moo like a sporran.
Yeah,
They
it
are
could.
made from cow, yeah.
Well, this one we have to learn what the fox says for this one.
Or we get pigskin. Wait. No. I do great pig noises. I had to work in my pig noises somehow. I hope that's not the clip Coraline uses for the beginning of that clip. Yes.
Lucas
All right.
looks confused over there.
Lucas always looks confused whenever I talk. He's just like either shuddering or confused.
from this angle, he's kind of like the neighbor on Home Improvement.
Oh, Wilson. Wilson, yep. Hey, Lucas.
Heidi ho, neighbor.
Listening.
I think that was Ned Flanders.
That's true. It's just all the same lines.
Yeah. Home Improvement guy just listening to crazy stuff and trying to offer words of advice.
Just like the show.
All right. Next question up. October Rain Rocks. That's his.
Oh, that's the question. I'm like,
yes, no.
October Rain, yeah.
He's asking, have you guys ever done any videos on how to look after your kilt, washing and drying? He is new to the channel, so hasn't gotten a chance to see if there's any up there yet.
Sure. I believe so. Basically, if you can, depending on what type of kilt it is, if it's a wool kilt, now I will only talk to the ones we have made. So if you got it somewhere else, talk to them, not me. If it's a wool kilt, you can either dry clean it or wet wash it if you know what you're doing. I think we've actually done videos on how to do that. We're eventually going to come out with a longer video series on how to wet wash kilts, that kind of thing, how to press kilts. If it is a Poly Viscose machine washable kilt, machine wash it, and then lay it flat to dry on the back of the sofa, and press it with a damp press cloth. Check out the YouTube videos. There are some out there on it that I know we have done on that particular topic.
Yeah, just no fabric softener on it.
Yes.
That'll take the Teflon off.
Yep. Mr. Mac.
Alrighty, so we have Michael asking here.
Hold, pause. And, what was his name?
October
Rain, Satan Devil Horns 72. Thank you for watching. Enjoy. Mr. Mac, next question.
Alright, so we have Michael asking, I understand that tartan is a weaving pattern repeated horizontally as well as vertically, warp and weft. If I want a set design with a horizontal blue line and yellow stripes and a vertical green line and red stripes, is this technically possible? If it is technically possible, is it still considered a tartan?
Yes. If you actually look at the Welsh tartans, they have a different warp and weft. Traditionally, from like 1995 and previous, tartans were effectively defined as a warp, which is the long threads that go down the tartan, and the weft, which is the quick ones that go up and down the bolt or across the bolt of the cloth. They were effectively the same. So you would have a warp and weft that were the same, which made a gridular pattern. We need the gridular graphic here. The gridular pattern. And it was... Do we have a gridular graphic? I don't think we do. We have to make a gridular graphic. Anyway, they were the same. Yes, warp and weft. In the late 90s, mid-90s, the Welsh Tartan Center, or two gentlemen who sold it to the Welsh Tartan Center, designed Welsh tartans. And to be different than the Scottish tartans and the Irish tartans that were out, they made a different warp and weft. So their kilts have a slightly vertical, stripy kind of effect to it, is the best way to put it, where the warp and the weft are different. So yes, you can do that. It is not common. Most tartan generators that you'll see online do not allow you to do that, but a mill can actually produce that. So yes, it can be done.
I think you've got to think of the finished product on this in the end, because how your horizontal versus your vertical is going to look when it's pleated or when the finished product's done, what you're going for, because you can get a very dominant line going horizontal across the kilt, and which makes the lawn chair effect that we've talked about on here, where it makes you look wider than what you are. So you've got to think. I think in this aspect, you got to think a little bit more of where you want the more dominant colors. You want them, if you're using grays or lighter colors, you're gonna make sure they're going vertically, not horizontally, in this aspect.
Now, specifically, correct me if I'm wrong, he was talking about the stripes repeating vertical versus horizontal.
And he's using blue and yellow horizontally, and green and red vertically.
For stripes,
that's
for the main colors.
He said horizontal blue and yellow stripes, and then vertically green and red stripes.
Okay. Stripes, I don't know whether he means like stripes as far as like, a stripe or a stripe.
Yeah, it depends on the width of
a
it.
field or a
Yeah.
stripe. Now, one thing I will point out is that a lot of non-traditional Scottish tartan fabrics, specifically Catholic schoolgirl uniforms, have, basically, I've seen a lot of them where it's the vertical stripes are all yellow, but the horizontal stripes are either all red or are yellow-red repeating up the cloth. So it can give a weird and or Catholic schoolgirl vibe to the fabric. So can you do it? Sure. Should you do it? Maybe, but it's going to be tricky to pull off. That's ultimately where I'm going to land on it.
Yeah, it's just a lot more thought process behind it.
Yep. Cool. Mr. Mack, next question.
Alrighty. We have Lucas.
As Lucas slams down the rest of his Jameson over there.
Is there a systematic way to pleat a great kilt to the stripe?
Yes. Is there a systematic way to pleat it to the stripe? When you're pleating a great kilt, you basically take your belt, lay it on the floor. And then a great kilt, all it is 5, 6, 7 yards of cloth that you actually hand pleat on the ground on top of the belt. Once it's actually pleated, well, you have a flat section that is the front apron, a pleated section, which you actually sit there and kneel and hand pleat, and then you leave a flat section at the end, which is the under apron. You lay down on the belt, you put the under apron over this way, over this way, you put the over apron or front apron over that way, and then you attach your belt and you stand up. How it is pleated is a little bit tricky on a great kilt. Let's say you're looking at a tartan with it's very boring and there's a dominant white stripe. Something like Lament or Lamont, if you want to say it that way for the Americans. The way to pleat it to that white stripe, remember, what you're seeing on the inside is the opposite of what you're going to see on the outside. So for Lamont, you have Lament, you have a white stripe in the center of the green, and then you have navy blue in the other section, a navy blue field. So how I would pleat it while looking at the backside, which is what you're actually going to be laying your body down on, is grab the navy blue section and pleat to the navy blue section on the inside. When you put your belt on and stand up, the opposite pivot, which will be the white stripe, is what will be on the outside of the kilt for the pleating section there. So that would be my suggestion on how to pleat it to a particular stripe, is you grab the section that is opposite of that stripe. In other words, if it's an 8-inch set, so at 4 inches, you have navy blue, and at the 8-inch mark, you have a white stripe. You grab the 4-inch section, pull it over, move over 8 inches to the next navy blue section, pull it over, and you keep going that way. When you put your belt on and you stand up, on the back side, you're going to have the white stripes.
Yeah, you kind of building it, you're doing it in reverse.
Yep.
So it's like painting on glass. You want to start with, we had to reference this earlier, so it made me think of it. It's you got to start with what you want to see and work backwards. So you've got to look at it from the opposite side, which it's going to take some practice. So you're going to have to kind of do it a couple times. But once you get the hang of it and once you understand it, it's going to be a breeze.
Agreed. Good luck.
Yeah.
Mr. Lucas.
All right, next question is coming in here. It's from Dan, and Dan is asking, how much weight can the average man lose without needing an additional kilt?
The weight gain and loss is always a difficult one with kilts. When we make kilts, the holes on the straps span about 3 inches or so. Mm-hmm. So if it spans 3 inches, we're going to try to make your measurement to the middle hole on the strap. So if you gain 1.5 inches or lose 1.5 inches, the kilt should still fit you. If you gain a little bit more or lose a little bit more than that, let's say you gain or lose 2.5 inches, you can always move the buckles on the right-hand side and move the strap that's on the left-hand side of the kilt. If you gain or lose a good bit more than that, then you're going to have to move things further. Or if you lose, 50 pounds and you weighed 200 pounds, it may be time for a new kilt at that point.
Yeah, there's always room. I'd say there's always room. There's always more room to go down than there is to go out, to an extent. Because once you expand to a certain size, there's not enough on the under apron in cases that I can expand it out or we can expand it out. Going in, when you're going smaller, when you're contracting, there's at some point your front apron is going to start wrapping around your body, and you're going to have less and less pleats showing. So at that point, you're almost looking at a rebuild in certain aspects of reconfiguring some things, and that can get pretty pricey at that point. And then at that point, sometimes you're looking at just better off just getting a new kilt. It just depends on the range of your expansion and contraction.
Yeah, or if you expand too much, there is no rebuild.
Yeah.
Because you need either A, to order more cloth, and you hope it matches the existing cloth, depending on the age of the kilt, or B, you're actually needing to widen each pleat, so it's literally you're tearing the whole thing apart and putting it all back together, and at that point, just get a new kilt and sell that one. Or if it's a family heirloom, put it to the side and buy yourself a new kilt.
Yeah, because we already sent Lucas out once to look for the tartan stretcher, and he's still looking for that.
Joanne's did not have it.
No.
Sorry to say.
Damn it, Joanne's! They never have what you need. Muslin cloth out the wazoo. No tartan stretchers. Useless. I hope that answer helps. Mr. Mack, next one.
Alrighty, we have David asking, do you have a specific tartan you wear for formal events, or do you pick them as you... I am not reading here. Do you have a specific tartan you wear for formal
passed
events?
Third grade, and it was a while ago.
Or do you pick them as you do casually?
For myself personally, I wear for formal events or dressy events. It kind of depends partially on what my wife is wearing, partially on the mood I'm in, partially on what's clean. So it really boils down to what I want to wear, what the event is. If my wife is wearing earthy kind of tones or wearing something darker, I'll wear either a weathered tartan, my Scott weathered, with black and browns and grays in it. If she's wearing something a little bit more flamboyant or brighter, I'll wear Celtic nations or something with more color in it. I have a lot of different kilts, ranging from very, very somber and dark to crazy bright colors. It also depends on what I have that is clean at the time. How do you pick?
It's very similar in figuring out what my wife's wearing, or if I know there's a particular color palette to that event that I'm going to. Sometimes I'll wear something that's more geared to the palette. Weddings are usually a little bit more geared towards palettes. I know for someone that's behind the camera over there wouldn't let me wear a certain kilt to an event because he was wearing it too. I mean, just because it was his wedding, Lucas, wouldn't let me wear mine.
Me, it's my wedding. Don't dress the same as me.
What a loser.
My wife might get confused.
Or in Lucas's case, you just figure out which kilt is ironed, and that's the one you wear. So it's
Now we're talking.
So all one of his kilts.
yes.
The boy has an ironing
if
deficiency.
if I keep buying new ones, I mean,
That's true.
you can't complain,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that an iron deficiency?
I hear there's a supplement for that. It's more kilts.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But yeah, for me, it's and I'll usually gear towards 8-yarders versus my 5-yarders in certain aspects too.
Yeah.
Especially if it's more of a formal wedding, more fancier event, I'll gear towards the 8-yarders versus my 5-yarders.
And it depends on what, even going beyond that, depends on what I have that's going to match it. If I have a tweed jacket that works real well with a 5-yard kilt, and it's a semi-formal kind of event, and I want to wear my tweed, then I would wear the 5-yard kilt with the tweed. If it's something that is a little bit more regal, and I'm wearing a regulation doublet in black, and I really like this particular kilt, and it's my 8-yard kilt, it's the only super duper fancy one that I own, sure, I'll wear that one. Mm-hmm. Hope that helps. Mr. Mack.
All right, we have Thomas asking, I have been designing a personal tartan. Can you discuss marled threads in a worsted wool versus tweed fabrics? He says he likes the visual texture of tweed, but would want the harder worsted material for a kilt. Are there worsted marled threads available for tartan?
Yes, there are some worsted marled threads available for tartan. Tweed has a specific kind of earthy feel to it, and has some flecks of different colors and things like that in the tartan. And a lot of tweed tartans end up having this kind of scratchy look. It doesn't feel scratchy, but a scratchy look to it. One mill not one mill. There's actually a couple. Loch Heron does a marled yarn. Marled means that there's two colors twisted together. So pick a lighter gray and a medium gray, twist them together, and when you weave that, you get this kind of like scratchy look to it. It doesn't feel scratchy, but it looks scratchy. House of Edgar did that same thing with a whole new range of tartans, where they used marled yarns to weave a few different tartans. And it's still worsted cloth. It's still a high-quality kilt-making cloth, and it's got a different kind of effect to the color of it. I'm a reasonable fan of some of them, some of their offerings, meh, but it's neat and it's different. And a lot of mills have gone to weaving tweed tartans as well with the rise of tweed and the popularity of tweed tartans right now in the marketplace. A few mills have gone to that. House of Edgar went to marled yarns for regular tartans. So there's a variation, but you can have both. They're unique animals. They're two different things. Now there's going to be a very, very limited range on colors in marled yarns. There's also going to be the opportunity to mix marled as well as, I'll call them flat colors in a yarn to give it a weird effect, or a neat weird effect, where it's like partial, like some fields are kind of scratchy looking and other fields are like flat looking. If you remember in the 1990s, like early 90s, those 3D posters that you look at, where it's kind of you unfocus your eyes, you look all weird and trance-like, and you see a 3D image in it. That's kind of how this cloth looks, where it's some things are scratchy and three-dimensional and other things are not. It gives that cool, different, neat, weird effect all at the same time.
Yeah, we've got one that I think Ian has out that he's working on now, that has that marled thread into it.
That's one of the House of Edgar new collection. Yeah,
I'm torn on it. I kind of go back and forth if I like it or not, because it does. Yeah, there's not, to me on that one. There's not enough separation between the base color, which is more of a brown, in that marled section. If it would be more of a contrast that makes them kind of both stand a little bit more, I think I would like it better. I think that's more where, if you're designing something like that, you need that contrast. It does, in other aspects, it does give that nice 3D effect where it has two different color greens and has like a mint green, where it kind of really gives that depth of field there. But a lot of them are just too close in color between the marled and the other base color.
I will say this as well. If you actually look at our Sterling tartan, or if you look at Loch Heron's Highland Granite tartan, the key point there is the balance between flat colors and the marled colors. You want a balance between the two. The balance is what makes it interesting. If it's all marled, it becomes like muddied and scratchy looking. If it's all flat, it's normal. It's a regular tartan. But having the balance, the difference between the two, is what makes it visually interesting. And it's the subtle hint. It's not kicking you in the face with, oh my God, this is like it looks weird. Why? It's there's something different, but I can't quite put my finger on it. That's the balance that I want to see in it. As a designer, that's the key.
I think Sterling is probably the best example of it. It's nice balance of everything.
I agree. I'm kind of,
You would.
But it's the key from a design aspect is not going too far one direction or too far the other. It's kind of how they work with each other. And the other thing I'll say is having a field of one and a field of another, not like little individual stripes won't give that much of a visual impact to the whole thing. So a section of one of marled and a section of flat will give that balance, whereas everything marled won't, or a bunch of little stripes won't give the same effect, the cumulative effect that offsetting sections would. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
For me.
Yes. We are tartan gods. Not really. We just know what we like. Hope that helps. Mm-hmm. Mr. Lucas.
All right.
Give us the next one.
Another question from Andrew. And Andrew is asking for a professional opinion. Pleating the Anderson tartan to the white stripe. Would it look good, or is the area around it too busy? And I'm looking at the Anderson tartan right behind Mac on the tartan.
The white to the white stripe?
To the white stripe, yes.
Other corner.
Yeah, I know.
How's your back feel, Mac? Stretch around there. When you are deciding to pleat a tartan to the stripe or not, you can use what I call my Christmas tree trick. Squint at it. If there is a particular stripe that jumps off of the tartan at you individually, then it would look good pleated to that stripe. It's the same way you judge your lights on the Christmas tree and your spacing of lights. Squint at the tree, and if you see a section that's a little bit darker, move some of your Christmas lights to that section. For Anderson, the white stripe is almost bordering on that kind. It's right next to the yellow, and it's bordering on that blue section. So, in my opinion, Anderson looks better pleated to the sett, because what you're going to end up with if you pleat it to the white stripe is an unbalanced pleat, where on one side you're going to grab a little bit of that blue on one side of the pleat, and on the other side you're going to have the black and that yellow stripe. You can kind of pleat Anderson to the black stripe between the yellow and red, or the yellow and white, but it's going to be a very, very busy pleating style. So it would not be my preference. Anderson, to me, would look better to the sett than it would to the stripe.
Yeah, and you pointed out, you think you hit it, you hit it nail square in the head there, is the unbalance of the pleat. You always want something running center of that pleat. And with that, you're having three elements that are all in the same tone that kind of pop. Well,
black, yellow, white, and blue. If you pleat to the white stripe.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you use the black as more of the contrast and use the yellow and the white as the pop.
And it depends on the width, too, of the width of the
blue's going to pop just as well. So you kind of lose. I see the effect you're going for, but I think you're gonna lose that effect completely because of the yellow and the blue are going to pop just as much as that white is.
Yeah. And the other thing, the white will stand out a little bit more because it's white. It's the higher contrast. The other thing to point out is tartans that look good pleated to the stripe are a couple things I'll point out. One, the stripe is usually the pivot, meaning if you hold a mirror up right on that stripe, left and right will look the exact same. Mm-hmm. Anderson, if you hold the mirror up on that white stripe, the left side you're going to have blue, the right side, you're going to have the yellow stripe and then the busyness, so it won't look great judging on that. And the other thing that's, in my estimation, kind of key with pleating to the stripe is having a wide enough field around the stripe that is the only other element on the pleat. So using, again, Lamont or Lament as the example, you have a white stripe in the middle of a green section. When you pleat it up and you take 1 inch or less than an inch of that section with a white stripe running right down the middle, all you're going to have is green. If you had a little bit of black or another color off to the side, what's going to happen is you're going to get spears. As you put the green section, or in Anderson, using that as the example, in Anderson, if you centered that white stripe, you're going to have blue on the one side. And when you put that pleat next to the following pleat, you're going to have the blue kind of disappear as it comes to the top. You're going to end up with spears of, a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch down at the bottom of blue. And then as you travel up and taper to the narrower part of the pleat, that blue is going to disappear. So you're going to have spikes of blue going up, which is going to be kind of distracting in the pleating elements across the back of the kilt. So typically, kilts that are pleated to the stripe are pleated to an individual stripe in a wider section that it's not distracting when you stack them all up.
The only way that really works in that aspect is you'd have to have blue on the opposite side, which then changes the whole pattern, because then that makes that blue, not these little spikes, it makes it a little wider, and it makes it look like another stripe in there. But again, now we're back to
that's designing a whole new tartan. That's not Anderson.
Yeah. So we're back to the same point.
Point spikes.
Get it?
I'm sorry. I don't know where I found it. Mr. Lucas, next one.
All right, next one up. We have a gal asking when a woman, her husband, is buying a kilt, she's encouraging him to sit with his legs closed. Is manspreading worse when their husband's buying a kilt and wearing it? And we're summarizing this with, how do you sit in a kilt politely?
There's a reason why the camera angle cuts off at our knees. I'll start there. Guys are not used to wearing to sitting with their knees together. Anatomically, I'm not going to get graphic, I promise. Anatomically, manspreading is a thing to a degree because it's not comfortable for guys to sit with our knees together. So ultimately, we sit as compact as we can, but it's not comfortable in the same way it is for a woman. Now, what I generally tell guys when they're sitting is, when you go to sit, you back up to the chair, put your hand on the sporran, push the sporran down, and sit down, so you're pushing the fabric between your legs as you are sitting. There are guys who don't follow that advice and will sit there with their I hope I'm not flashing the camera right now, with their knees apart and the fabric taut across the front and, kind of exposing themselves to the world. It takes getting used to. Guys aren't used to wearing skirts. We're not used to wearing things with no crotch sewn in and sitting down in public places and private, wherever, in a kilt. We're not used to it. So it takes a little bit of knowledge and practice to get used to, sliding back into the chair, putting your hand on the sporran, pushing it down, and maintaining a bit of modesty.
I think we had a phrase a little while ago called sweep the pleats.
Sweep the pleats. You have a problem with that?
No, Rocky.
No wrinkles.
Just making sure everything's swept forward, too, as you're sitting down. So you're not bunching things up. And you stand up and it's like an accordion in the back. It's... A couple times with this do funny hanging out, he's going to get told. At least you're going to tell him about it.
Yeah, please, just whack him on the back of the head. Make him understand that or just wear underwear.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're maintaining some modesty. You're not scaring the kids or grandma. You want to maintain some modesty while wearing a kilt. You just have to be cognizant of your surroundings, cognizant of how you're sitting, how you're carrying yourself, or what you're carrying and exposing. So it takes a bit of practice. Point it out to them. It's because we are not used to, as guys, we are not used to wearing kilts. We're not used to doing it a certain way. It just takes a bit of practice. Once you have it down, once you wear a kilt on a daily basis or a quasi-regular basis, you'll figure it out. It just takes a little bit of prodding to make sure that we're, maintaining the modesty.
Yeah, and you said it before. I think you said before that sporran definitely helps with that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're wearing a sporran. If you're not wearing a sporran, then it's usually it's a push down on the front apron too, just to kind of get that to settle in the groove. We also have Andrew asking a very similar question about getting into a vehicle.
What did Andrew ask about getting into a vehicle, Mac?
He said sitting in chairs is relatively straightforward. But what about getting into a vehicle?
I'm so glad Andrew asked that question, Mac.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sit in a vehicle with the pleats without monkeying up the whole back of your kilt? Great question, Andrew. Thank you for asking. Here's a little trip or a little trick, tip, whatever, on how to get into a vehicle while maintaining your kilt pleats. Get a bath towel, get a beach towel, whatever, and keep it in your car. If you're going to be wearing your kilt, when you get to your car, open the door, grab your bath towel, grab your beach towel, whatever, and wrap it around you. While you're standing, sit down in the car and swing your feet into the car while holding the bath towel in front of you. When you're in the car, lay the bath towel off to the side, put on your seatbelt, good to go, travel to your destination. That will keep the pleats the same, tucked in, conformed as they were while you were standing. You get to your destination, you get out of the car, your pleats will be fine, you leave the bath towel in the car. You go in, you go to the bar, the ball, whatever you're going to, you have a good time, you come back out, repeat the process, get in the car, wrap it around you, get home, boom, done. It's a good way to maintain the look of your pleats, especially if you're traveling a distance. The enemy of the pleats, the wrinkle, the dastardly wrinkle.
Bum, bum, bum.
Dum, dum, dum. We need dramatic music. The enemy of the pleats is the wrinkle. And the wrinkle occurs from heat and time and pressure. So if you're in the car for an hour and your body heat is heating up the pleats and they're fakakta laying underneath you, they're going to be wrinkled when you get to your destination. So the straighter you can keep the pleats, or the less time that you're sitting on the pleats, the better they will end up. But if you have to travel to get to your destination, bring a bath towel with you, wrap it around you. It'll keep the pleats nice and kind of straight as you're traveling.
Yeah, I think it also depends on how your seat is too. A lot of vehicles are more level, or even kind of like a regular seat you sit in during the day, so you can kind of get away with the whole sweep the pleats and sitting up in there. If it's more of a lower sitting
Bucket
car
seat or something, yeah,
you got to kind of get down into. I think that's where more of that.
I will say this as well: leather versus cloth seats. Leather seats, you can pivot a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Cloth seats, it's going to grab the pleats and really royally wreck them. So the bath towel is absolutely a great idea for cloth seats.
And be aware of your sporran chain. Where your sporran buckles, you can rip some seats up with that pretty quick.
What was the car I had? My first Avalanche, my Chevy Avalanche. I used to wear my, just jump in the truck with the sporran chain, and I wore a hole or, scratched the heck out of the leather in the back of the seat from my sporran chain from wearing my kilt every single day. So I got in the habit when I got in the truck, or before I got in the truck, of flipping the sporran chain over. So the little prong on the buckle faced the back of the kilt, and then get in the truck, When I get to the destination, flip the sporran chain back over so it wasn't wrecking the seats. And my employees, when we go to when we go to Kilt the Classic, I give the warning every time somebody gets in the truck. Everyone, please turn your sporran chains around, flip your sporran chains, don't wreck my friggin' seats.
Yep, we got in the habit of it. It became routine. We were doing it, and I started doing it in my vehicle. Yep. And then a couple of us then started getting sporran straps, and I felt that was easier because you could just slide the strap around. Yeah. So the buckle sat over here more than it did in the back, and then you were good to go.
I actually wear a sporran strap myself. What ends up happening is for the show, I actually spin the sporran strap around to the back, but every single day when I put my sporran on, I attach the strap right around here off to the side, and I just leave it like that for the majority of the day. It's a quick adjustment to get it on, and it's a quick adjustment to get it off. I don't care how it looks. It looks fine. It's close enough. If I want to be pictured or make it look super nice, I'll put it in the back, but I leave it off to the side so that way when I get in my car or I'm doing something where it's going to scratch the back of the chair, it doesn't affect that leather or the material and grab and rip at the material. So I just leave it off to the side.
I think even your old chair for your sewing machine had a line in the back too.
We actually have a chair in the office, the red chair downstairs, Lucas. This chair, it's a red cloth chair, and there is a section like 3 inches tall and about 10 inches wide. It's like ripped the hell apart. It's just foam pouring out of the chair from my sporran chain, destroying this chair. And at that point, I didn't really care. It's an old chair, but now my nice fancy new chairs. We don't do that. We try to treat our furniture with respect.
I took that chair into the shop and got a prompt. Hey, here's your problem on that one.
Hope that helps. What the hell were we talking about?
Getting in a vehicle.
Cars? Yeah.
And so, just sitting.
So, tips for getting in cars. Cheers. Mr. Lucas, next one.
Alrighty, question from Cynthia. And Cynthia is asking, how do you feel about a woman wearing an actual kilt? I assume she means a 5-yard or an 8-yard kilt, as opposed to a pleated skirt.
Women gon' do what women gon' do. Traditionally speaking, a kilt is a man's garment. A pleated, skirt to the knee is a man's kilt. Women traditionally, again, finger quotes, wore below the knee or above the knee. Now, there are exceptions, obviously, for bagpipers and people like that. That being said, women's fashion is much more lenient than men's is. So, if you want to wear a kilt to the knee, my traditional eye would say that over time, as I've developed my eye, it looks a little bit more masculine. So you could do it, but it looks a little bit more masculine. What I would suggest is you don't have to do a mini kilt, like 6-8 inches above the knee, where it's a bit risque as you bend over to pick something up. But 2 inches, 3 inches above the knee, tops, it would still look good. Or a little bit more matronly, 3-4 inches below the knee is a nice, librarian type look. Or ankle length is what's called a, not kilted skirt.
Hostess skirt?
Hostess skirt, thank you. I was thinking Fiona skirt, but that's a little bit different. It's a more feminine look to it, whereas a to the knee look is much more masculine.
Now, what about something more like the great kilt style, like a Earasaids?
That's a whole different question, Mac. How dare you, sir, mix two questions?
Well, we're talking about women's kilts.
Was Cynthia? Was that her name? Cynthia?
Yes, it was.
When Cynthia took the time, Mac, to ask us specifically about a man's kilt to the knee, and you're muddling up the whole thing. How dare you, sir? Cynthia, I apologize. I do not know this man. But since he asked, what's your other question, Mac? Let's lump them all together. Sorry, Cynthia, you're no longer special. Mac's lumping it all in.
Well, we were talking about women's kilts, and we went to mini kilts, so I figured the great
figured wrong, good sir.
the great kilt version It could be an option as well. And it says, can women wear a gray kilt? That is, I am sure they're able to put it on properly, but what I'm asking, is it good form or proper for women to wear a gray kilt?
The reason I wanted to actually separate the questions, but now we're joining them, was because she's talking specifically about a contemporary, contemporary kilt worn to the knee, men's tailored kilt, versus a great kilt Earasaids, which is a there's no sewing involved. For the great kilt or Earasaids battle, a great kilt is a man's garment worn to the knee. An Earasaids is a pleated length. They're both pleated lengths of cloth that you hand pleat, but an Earasaids is worn over another skirt, whereas a great kilt is just a length of cloth and that's all you're wearing. That's maybe a shirt. So it's wholly different in my mind from a tailored kilt or a tailored kilted skirt or a tailored mini kilt. They're both, the Earasaids and the great kilt are both non-tailored, so therefore different. Historically speaking, women would wear an Earasaids over top of a blouse and a different skirt, whereas a man would wear a shirt and a great kilt. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, would you see? So you're saying that underskirt would be plain material. It wouldn't be like two tweeds or two tartans. It would be a plain skirt underneath with this tartan wrapped around. Yes,
you're getting into history, which is more Eric's bag, or not my bag. But I'm remembering from the Maclay prints, the traditional paintings of clans. There are women wearing, at least one I can remember, women wearing an Earasaids, and it's a plain, I think, gray skirt, and just literally gathered cloth around the bottom half of her, wearing a shirt, and then the Earasaids kind of drapes around it and over top of it. I'm thinking of Jackie from the band Albanach, and the way she wears it is, again, a skirt, and then she just kind of gathers the cloth around her in a similar style to a great kilt, but in an unstructured, more feminine look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I remember we were getting cloth to Albanach and with their tartan, and it's people coming up to ask us how she pleats it, and you're like, I don't know, ask her.
Pretty much. There's videos. There's a site called YouTube. Eventually, we're gonna make a video on how to drape an Earasaids and that kind of thing. And Jackie. Shout out to Jackie from Albanach. Spectacular band. Beautiful, wonderful woman. I love Jackie with all my heart. She's a beautiful soul. She pleats hers differently than the rest of the guys in the band because she's a woman, not a man. But yeah, it's a different animal from a men's great kilt. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm going back to the first question. And we had
that you screwed up.
I know. We had
Sorry, Cynthia, whatever. Go ahead.
We had Emily working, and Morgan and Coraline. They all had different lengths. They all went different routes with how they were wearing them. One of the things that Emily and Morgan really wanted was make sure they had some length in their, even though they got mini kilts in the aspect of the way it's made. They still wanted to go further to the knee.
Just above the knee or whatever.
Yeah, so it's your how comfort you are.
And now Coraline's, she wore much higher. She wears a high-waisted mini kilt, and then it's a little bit more flirtatious, but it's not obscene. But it's worn much higher on her waist than the other two. Yeah, it's ultimately, when it comes to women's fashion, style, that kind of thing, it's very, very much personal preference. Yes. Whether it's an Earasaids or great kilt, whether it's a mini kilt, kilted skirt, or men's kilt, it's very, very much personal preference is really what it boils down to. Cool. Mr. Mack, let's ask one question, not six, and lump them all together.
All right, so we have Jerry. He's asking, if you had to go inexpensive on a kilt outfit, what is one part of the outfit you compromise on?
Inexpensive on a kilt outfit. What do we compromise on? There's different ways to approach this one. If you have a limited budget, and I'll start with this. My normal, where I want to go immediately, is the parts that are more expensive. Spend the right amount of money on the more expensive parts that you don't want to replace or upgrade later. So if you want to get Gordon Ancient, that's the tartan you want. It's only available in wool, so you're stuck with a 5-yard wool kilt or an 8-yard wool kilt. Get that. Spend your money on the kilt itself and invest there. Don't get a cheap kilt that you're going to replace later. Get the right kilt, the one that you actually want and you're going to appreciate. Where I would spend a little bit less money is on the belt or the buckle or the kilt pin or the sporran or the hose, where it's something that you can replace later, or something that's going to wear out, like kilt hose or whatever. It's going to wear out sooner, or you're going to be able to replace it at a cheaper price than the kilt itself. The kilt itself is going to be a lifetime garment, hopefully, unless you gain or lose weight, or depending on how much you wear it. So you don't want to replace a $320 garment, but you can buy a $50 day sporran that's not quite right to start off with, but the $110 day sporran that you really, really love, that's going to be the one that you're going to save up for, and in 6 months, a year, that's what you're going to go after. If I'm looking at it from an aspect of omitting a part of the outfit to be able to, economize the outfit, the first thing I would there's two parts. The first thing I would omit would be the skin do, because it serves very, very minimal functional purpose. It's more of a look thing than a functionality thing. And chances are, if you are a knife guy and you really, really have to have a knife on you, you're going to have your own preferred knife, not a skin do, which is more decorative. Option B is the kilt pin. I don't wear kilt pins all that often. So that would be probably the first thing that I would omit from a full package, or the ghillie brogues, where you can get away with something else versus the rest of the outfit that is kind of necessary. Mac, what do you think?
I think it depends on the end result of what you're doing this for. If you're want to do it casual, if you're want to get a kilt outfit that's more of a casual outfit, I agree. Go with a different sporran. Exclude the kilt pin. You don't, at that point, you don't need a skin do. The buckle and belt, you can downgrade a little bit. But the kilt, the basic piece, the kilt, do it. If you're gonna do it right the first time. And that's
the core.
That's the base of everything else. And that's a lot of the times. This is a similar question I get in the reenacting community, where they're debating on whether to get product from this company or this company. Well, this company may be, cheaper, lower quality stuff, and this may be more top quality and museum grade stuff, which you want to get eventually. Why would you get this to start off with than to buy this? You're going to spend twice as much in the end to get the good thing. So just
Save up longer and get the good thing.
Yeah. Save the time and effort into it. It's even if you're doing it for a wedding and you want to you don't have enough for the jacket and vest, you can always rent a jacket and vest, or just go the vest route. Because how much do you really wear the jacket once you're doing your thing? So there's some of those things you can exclude to help the process go along. You can always go back later and get some of that stuff. It's just what is the event that you're going to that you need this stuff for?
Yeah. And ultimately, think about the parts of the outfit that are the cheapest to replace. If you started off with a $100 kilt, which you didn't really like, and you eventually were going to get a $320 kilt, I'd rather see you start there and get a $320 kilt and have the right one to start with and save up a little bit longer potentially to get it than buy a $50 sporran and upgrade to it's price-wise. It makes sense to start there and not waste the $100 versus buying a $50 sporran and upgrading to a $100 sporran, or buying a $30 buckle and upgrading to a $50 buckle. The $20 delta is less than the $200 delta on the kilt. So start with the parts that are cheaper to replace, or the parts that you can actually move along with quicker and get, and make do with quicker. All right, we're about 5 o'clock. We're going to take one more question before we sign off. Mr. Lucas.
All right, bringing us back to where we started. Nicholas is asking us, what is the turnaround time for a casual kilt in the midst of a pandemic?
Pandemic?
There's one of those?
Who knew? Right now, we are very, very... We are weirdly operating as fast as we can, and nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows how soon we're going to be up and running, how soon the businesses are going to be operating. Casual kilts, we have the fabric in stock. Those are easy. We can actually have it out in a couple weeks with a rush charge, or 8 to 10 weeks with the normal turnaround time right now. Wool kilts, it's going to be 8 weeks to 16 weeks. We have no idea because nobody knows when this is going to end. We have a lot of stuff in stock, ready to go right now. Ultimately, it's all up in the air. Nobody knows what's going on. And just like you, we are all, muddling through this whole thing together. So we appreciate everyone's patience. Yes. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing. If there's one thing that is going to come out of this, it is support your neighbors, support the people that are helping us, the first responders, support small businesses. The economy coming out of this is either going to bounce back in a V shape because everyone's waiting to get out of their house, or it's going to drag on and the whole thing is going to get screwed up. So from my personal plea to you, not about USA Kilts, about everything, is shop small.
Yes.
Shop and keep doing the things that you are doing. If you have been laid off, if you don't have a job, there's only a certain amount that you can do, and we get that, and we're not diminishing that at all. But if you still have a job, if you still have income, please keep moving forward. Keep spending. Keep the economy moving. Shop small businesses that need it. Small businesses are the backbone of this country. That is a phrase for a reason. We all need to keep moving forward. We all need to pull together. We all need to keep this whole thing going. And we will not let this defeat us. Period. Whether it's a pandemic, whether it's the economy, we need to keep going. We need to keep some sense of normalcy. We need to have friends, neighbors, loved ones. We all have to come together. We have to keep going forward. So again, everyone out there, thank you for watching. Thank you for the first responders for what you are doing to keep this whole country afloat and to keep us all safe. Please, everybody, whether you buy it from us or somebody else, wear a face mask, contain everything. Let's do the social distancing thing. Let's get the hell through this and get back to normal. I don't want to be stranded away from my friends, away from my family, any more than any of you do. So let's all pull together, do what we got to do. With that being said, back to the harsh reality of social distancing and the horrible, horrible situation we all find ourselves in. But I hope this 2 hours meant something to you guys. I honestly feel much better just having a mental break.
Yes.
And not worrying about, where where we're going and what we're doing. But it all has to end, and unfortunately, reality sets back in. I'm going to cry. Anyway, until next time, boys and girls, sláinte mhath.